you know how to make an app with a GUI, that is, with a graphical user interface. And that's good if you want your app to be run by other people, because the vast majority of people can push buttons, twist knobs, and slide sliders. Very few of them know how to type MATLAB commands, or commands in any other language for that matter. So with a GUI, you can turn a program into an app that far more people can use, so that's great. But there's a big catch here. To run your app, they have to run MATLAB, and they have to get MATLAB before they can run MATLAB. Or do they? Well, no, they don't. Or I should say, no, they won't if you transform your app into a form that can be run without MATLAB. I promise to amaze you in this lecture, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you how to do that transformation thing. But that's not the amazing part. The amazing part is how easy it is to transform it. So are you ready to be amazed? Well, let me fire up MATLAB and amaze you right now. Oh, but before I fire up MATLAB and amaze you, I've got to disappoint you. Well, at least some of you. Most of you, probably. You can't do what I'm about to do with MATLAB Online. Sorry, it doesn't support this feature. At least not yet. Not now, which is June of 2020. To transform an app so that it can be run without MATLAB, you need an installed version of MATLAB. And that installation needs to have the compiler toolbox installed along with it, too. Okay, now that the bad news is out of the way, let's fire up MATLAB and get to the amazing stuff. Now let's first run the app the old-fashioned way, inside MATLAB. As you can see over here in the current folder window, I got a copy of global temp's mlap and the data file that it needs, globaltemp.mat, right here in the current folder. Let's right-click on globaltemps.mlap and select Run. The app pops up, and we can also see that the command globaltemps showed up here in the command window. That's another way to run an app inside MATLAB. Just type its name in the command window and hit Enter, just like you would for any normal function. Let's close the app and run it that way. And while we've got it open, let's press some buttons, move some knobs, slider, etc. Okay, still working fine. And that's the way you run an app inside MATLAB, but the point of this lecture is to open the cage and let this little beauty run free. Let's do that. To do it, we start by executing a single command with no arguments in the command window, Deploy Tool. And it pops up a window with three options. Application Compiler, which is the one we want, Hadoop Compiler, which is for applications that run on computer clusters, which we don't want, and Web App Compiler, which we'll come back to. We click on Application Compiler, and the Application Compiler window pops up. The first thing we need to do is identify the file containing the app. We do that by clicking on the plus sign up here. A file browser pops up, and we select globaltemps.mlap. Now, here in this first blank space, a name has been filled in for our app, which is the file name globaltemps without the extension. We could pick a different name, but I'm happy with that, so we'll leave it. It shows 1.0 here, which means version 1.0. Happy with that too, so no change there. There are 5 blanks here for optional information. Let's add that later so you can see the magic transformation as soon as possible. Now look down here in the section that says Files Required for Your Application to Run. And we see the Deploy tool has looked inside the Global Temps app and figured out that it needs globaltemp.mat. It's going to include this file in the standalone package. Now let's go up here to this radio button group that has two buttons: Runtime Downloaded from Web and Runtime Included in Package. We're going to click the second one, which means that every piece of MATLAB that's needed to run our app will be bundled together in the file that we distribute. Finally, we come over here to this big green check mark labeled Package. And by the way, that's a verb meaning pack it up. And that will start the actual transformation process. We click the check mark, and our operating system, which in this case is macOS, opens a file browser so we can pick a folder in which to save a file with the information that we've just put in. It's suggesting the name globaltemps.prj, where prj means project. We can reopen the project file later to add information or to make changes. I like this name, and I like this folder, so I'll click Save. At this point, if this is the first time Deploy tool has been run on this machine, you'll get a pop-up that says Valid MATLAB Runtime Installer Not Found. In that case, just pick Download from Web. In either case, the next thing you'll see is this pop-up, and if you sit here long enough, a folder will pop up with all the output from the packaging process. If we move it out of the way, we see that there's a check mark below each of the icons showing that all parts of the process have completed successfully. That success comes at a price. You might be able to hear it. The fan on my computer just revved up. I've noticed this happening with Deploy tool a lot, suggesting that it's doing a lot of work and generating a lot of heat. The folder popped up because this box was checked. Open Output Folder when process completes. You can uncheck it, but I like to have the output folder pop up, so I always keep it checked. In the output folder, you can see 3 subfolders. We'll look inside the others in a little while, but first let's look inside the one named for testing. Right here is our standalone app, globaltemps.app. The file extension app tells us that it's designed to run on a Mac, and that's because I ran Deploy tool in a MATLAB installation on a Mac. To generate an exe file, which is the file extension for a Windows standalone, we need to run Deploy tool in a MATLAB installation on a Windows machine. So I made it on a Mac, and I've got the file on a Mac, so all I have to do is double-click it. But before I do, just to make sure that we don't need to have MATLAB running, let's close MATLAB. Okay, I thought he'd never leave. Now it's just you, me, and our little app. It's magic time, the moment of truth. I double-click it. Patience. 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 And there. You and I are looking at a beautiful app running all by itself. Was that easy or what? But does it work? Is it more than just a pretty face? Is its brain working? Well, yes it is. It's just the same as every other time we ran it. But now, this little bird has been freed from the surly bonds of MATLAB. We've got a standalone app, and it took only a few minutes. If you don't think that's amazing, then you must lead a more exciting life than I do. That's probably not all that unlikely, but it sure amazed me the first time I saw it. Still does. Now let's go back and make some changes to our Deploy tool project. To do that, we open MATLAB. and we double-click the project file. Its window opens up, looking the same as it did when we closed it. Now I'm ready to make some changes. The main thing I want to change is the splash screen. This is a picture that shows up when the app is run as an installed standalone. While you weren't looking, I grabbed a screenshot of our little app and saved it as a JPEG file in the current folder. To use it as the splash screen, all I have to do is click where it says Select Custom Splash Screen and choose the file, which I have cleverly named apppic.jpg. And there it is. It looks pretty good. The only special thing I did was to stretch the app vertically until it was approximately square before I took the screenshot to keep it from being distorted when Deploy Tool fitted into the square splash screen format. Another thing I want to change is the little image over here, which is the app's icon. This is the file icon that you can click or double click to run the app. To do that, I just click it, then click Select Icon, and pick an icon file. To get a nice looking icon is an art, and it takes a bit of work. And you can look up how to make icons, but that's a sidetrack. Instead, we're going to keep barreling down the main line by the cheap and dirty trick of using the same image that I used for the splash screen. So I choose that JPEG. And then we have the option to use a mask, which rounds off the corners. I like that. And to use a border, which kind of sharpens up the edges. I like that. So I click Save and Use. And let's also put a summary in here. Interactive display of the Earth's temperature history. And let's click Package to wrap all this up again into our standalone app. And there we go. This time I want to look in this folder called For Redistribution. And in there we find just one file, myappinstaller_mcr app. This is the one file that you need to distribute so that users can install your app. All they have to do is double click the thing. Well, why don't we do that? We want to install the app on this machine just to see if it works, so I'm going to double click it. And we wait a little while, being patient. And I have to tell my operating system that I'm really who I'm supposed to be by entering my password. And here we are at the installer, Global Temps Installer. Global Temps version 1.0, interactive display of the Earth's temperature history, which we just typed in. Akos Lidici and Mike Fitzpatrick authors, and let's click Next. This is where it's going to be installed. It's going to show up in our Applications folder under the company name Vanderbilt, the app name Global Temps. So we click Next. And now it says the MATLAB runtime is required. What's this? Well, we've got our app with our commands, and those commands call MATLAB functions, and we've got to have those functions in their libraries all installed on our machine. And this is where they're going to be put, in the Applications folder under MATLAB, MATLAB_runtime. And I'm going to click that. Oh, well, it's already installed because I've got revision 2020A of MATLAB installed on our machine already. And by the way, all of this stuff is copyrighted and licensed and everything, but MATLAB grants you a free royalty. You can even sell this thing and they don't want anything for it. Okay, let's click Install. So the installation completed successfully, and you can read the product configuration notes if you want to, but you don't need to. Let's just click Finish. Well, did we finish? Was something installed? Well, let's go look over here and maybe we can find out. Let's go to our launch pad. And I've got a lot of stuff here. What I'm looking for is that little icon that I made. Cheap and dirt. Aha! Vanderbilt. Not sure what other means, but let's click that. And there it is. That's how bad that icon looks when you just use that big JPEG instead of making a beautiful icon. But let's click it and see if we've got a standalone app standing alone on this machine. As usual, we have to have patience. And there it is. Is it working? Looks like it. Yes, it is. And so let's quit it. So we quit it, but what if the user wants to uninstall it? What then? What do you have to do? Well, make sure you've got your Finder open and go up here to the top and look for this Go. This is how I find applications. Come down here to Applications, and I've got this in order by date modified, latest at the top, and there's this Vanderbilt, and inside it is Global Temps with a bunch of stuff. Now you don't need to click uninstall. If you want to get rid of something on a Mac, just click right, move it to trash, and it's almost gone, but not quite. We got to go down to the trash can and click right on it. Click delete immediately. Yes, I want to delete it. Now it's gone. Or is it? Let's go back here to our launch pad. I don't see it there, friends. It's gone. So, you've seen us create an app, and you've seen us change it into a standalone. And we installed it on this machine, and we ran it, and we then uninstalled it. But maybe you're not that impressed, because this so-called standalone app is standing not so alone. It's right on the machine we created it on with the same MATLAB installed here. Maybe you'd be a little more impressed if I were to make this app and then move to another machine and install it. Maybe a machine with a totally different operating system. Suppose I created it on a machine running Windows 7, then moved it to a machine, totally different hardware, running Windows 10 and installed it there, and it ran standalone with no MATLAB available. Would you be impressed then? I think you would. Let's do that. So here I am on a Windows installation. This is Windows 7, and I have MATLAB installed. I'm going to run it. And you can see this is version 2019B. And over here I've got pretty much the same setup that I had to begin with on the Mac system. I've already put this picture here. Here's the mat file we need, and there's globaltemps.mlab. So I'm going to run deploy tool again. This time there's 4 options. There's an extra one here called Library Compiler. In these installations you can also package MATLAB programs that can be used as shared libraries. But we're not going to do that. We're back to Application Compiler. And once again we pick our main file and we pick globaltemps.mlab. And we can skip all of this stuff. I am going to put Vanderbilt in here though, because that determines where the installation files are stored, and they do pay the bills after all. Let's see, did it give us a name? Yep, Global Temps 1.0. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Check the runtime included in package radio button, and so let's run package. We'll save it in something called globaltemps.prj. And here in this system, you can see we don't have a valid MATLAB runtime installer, so we have to download from the web. And this takes a little while. I'm going to abbreviate the time it takes so you don't have to wait for the whole thing. You can feel sorry for me because I do have to wait for the whole thing. Well, folks, I'm back and you can hear my fan running. It took 6 minutes to download that file and get it ready for installation and everything. And those last 2 steps took 4 minutes. The total from typing deploy tool to the files being saved was 11.5 minutes. And let's do our testing. Here's globaltemps.exe this time. And if I double click it, and I guess we will quit MATLAB just as we did before to make sure that everything's working. And let's do it. Remind me to fix that splash screen. And again, takes a little patience. These things take a while to start. But there it is. And we've got the familiar knobs, the radio buttons, the averaging window, and we can go back to default settings. And so this thing is working. Well, let me get MATLAB going again. Again, I'm not going to make you wait for this. I'm going to run this project. And I'm going to fix this splash screen. Just don't like that. There we go. We'll pick that. And let's go up here to our icon. We'll select the same thing. We'll use the mask. We'll use the border. Save and use. And let's package it again. This time the first step is skipped because we've already downloaded this system. And let's hope this doesn't take 3 minutes this time. You can certainly still hear my fan running. Total time elapsed to create the package this time was 23 seconds. Okay, now let's look in here under for redistribution. See this myappinstaller_mcr.exe. Okay, I'm going to copy this into a USB drive. Copy this one file. There's a lot of stuff here, almost a gigabyte. I'll speed this up for you a little bit. And saving that file took 52 seconds. Making standalone apps is not something you want to do when you're in a hurry. But then good things are worth the wait. Okay, let's remove this disk. I'll eject it. And I'll see you when I'm on the next machine. Okay, here I am on another Windows system. This happens to be a Windows 10 machine. And I've got my USB disk with my installer in it. And I'm going to shove it in. And there it is. And here's my app installer. And double click it. I'll tell you how long these things take, but I won't make you wait for them. And my fan has come on. And that took about a minute to get to that point. And here we are, Global Temps 1.0. Click Next. And you can see that the business name that I gave is Vanderbilt. So it's putting this under Program Files Vanderbilt. And I'll click this so I'll have a shortcut added to the desktop. You see I have a few over here already. And here we go. Oh, you know, I'm going to read this carefully and then click Yes. Confirmation window tells me what's it going to do. And here we are installing, and we're at 0% complete. I'll let you know how long this takes, but I won't make you wait. Okay, here I am at the very end of this portion of the installation. We're at 99%, but this progress bar is not proportional to the time. For example, the first 10% took a lot longer than the next 10%. We got to 75% and we were holding. Now we're at 100%, and oddly, we're not done. But here we are. Total amount of time, 6 minutes. Now we click Finish. So I don't need this thing anymore. I'm going to get rid of it. Eject it. Thank you. I'll remove it. It's out of the machine. Now let's see if this works. Double click this. We see the splash screen show up. And it looks like our app has arrived. A little slow getting started, but let's see if it works. Yep. So we got a standalone app that we compiled on one machine and is running on another machine. Let's go down here to this Start button and scroll through all our, this says recently added apps. This is Windows 10 to remind you. We compiled it on a Windows 7 machine, but that doesn't make any difference. What's this thing called? Global Temps. Oh, there it is. Let's click that. Same splash screen. And another copy of the app shows up. Since I double clicked it, I got 3 copies going here. You can run them all at the same time. Okay, let's kill these things. Kill them on the right in Windows. I'm going to go back here and take another look. I'm going to click right on this. And you can see an uninstall button here. That's very important. To uninstall something on Windows, you need to use the uninstall feature, because on Windows, unlike on a Mac, the components of your app are scattered all over the place. So you can't just go to one spot, put it in the trash can, and be done with it. You have to use the uninstall. So let's go ahead and uninstall it so you can see that happen. Here it is, global temps. I'm going to select it, put uninstall. And it even got rid of this shortcut on the desktop. And we finish. Let's go back to the start. No global temps. So it works. You just got to be patient. It's easy to do, but it's not easy to do it in a hurry. Okay, so now maybe you believe that we really are making a standalone app. Meanwhile, back here on the Mac, let's close this. And I promised I'd say something about downloaded from the web. What does that mean? Well, this time if we were to package, after we've clicked this radio button, you notice there's only 3 icons, because we don't need that first step in which we get the runtime system into our installer, because we're going to require that the user download the runtime system from the web during installation. Let's look inside the for redistribution folder again. The last time we looked in here, it was just one file, myappinstaller_mcr.app. But now there's a second one too, myappinstaller_web.app. We just created this second file. The MCR here stands for MATLAB Component Runtime, which means that all the components needed for running your app, including all the functions and all the libraries and the MATLAB runtime system, are contained in this one giant file. And by giant, I mean 3/4 of a gigabyte. And it could be larger if more functions are needed. This other one is tiny. By comparison, anyway, just a couple of megabytes. The difference is that the small one has just enough functionality to download all the stuff that's inside the big one from the web. That's going to make the installation take longer. But then if you send the user the big file over the internet, that's going to take just as long. The big difference is when you're going to send someone physically to the installation site to install the software, in which case they would take the MCR file on a USB drive to avoid the download time when they get there. In either case, there's one thing you don't have to worry about, and that's someone stealing your code by looking inside these files, or inside the app file or the exe file that's installed on the user's machine. Unless the user you're worrying about is the CIA, NSA, or the KGB, your secrets are safe. And they're probably even safe from 3-letter organizations like these, no matter how fancy their code-breaking techniques are. That's because deploy_tool encrypts your MATLAB functions in what they call a CTF, which means Component Technology File, using the Advanced Encryption Standard, also known as AES, with a 1024-bit key. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty bulletproof to me. They don't encrypt the data that's included with your app. So for example, in our Global Temps app, globaltemp.mat, the file containing the temperature data will be out there in the open. So you don't want to put your bank account password in there, but your code is hidden behind the almost impenetrable AES wall. So whether you're worried about the user or someone intercepting the files transferred to the user via the web, your code secrets are safe. And speaking of the web, you may remember the option that pops up when you run deploy tool. right there at the beginning. Web App Compiler, which allows you to deploy apps to the web using the MATLAB Web Apps Server. Well, we're not going to cover this option in this course because it's not the best way to deploy apps on the web. There are, unfortunately, lots of bad actors out there that are looking for ways to get into the web servers where they can do serious damage. And if you set up your own web server, you can open yourself up to them. MATLAB provides some very sophisticated tools for web app development and deployment that are safe, and they're designed to be deployed by coordinated teams of MATLAB programmers, software developers, and web designers. If you're interested in learning more about that world, you might search for MATLAB Compiler SDK, which means Software Development Kit, and for big commercial projects, the MATLAB Production Server. And one last detail that's kind of nice. I mentioned this before, but maybe you missed it. All this stuff is provided by MATLAB royalty-free. That is, when you distribute your apps standalone or on the web, or however you do it, using Deploy Tool, the MathWorks doesn't expect to get a cut of your profits if you sell them to users. So, that's how you generate a standalone app with MATLAB. You'll have to admit it is pretty easy because of Deploy Tool. And if you have an installation of MATLAB no earlier than R2016B with the compiler toolbox, you've got it. Earlier versions were able to create standalones, but they required the running of a command with somewhat complicated arguments. The command was MCC, and it's still around, but it doesn't allow you to create an installer the way Deploy Tool does. So I like Deploy Tool, and that's why we showed it to you. We demonstrated it on the example app Global Temps, which we had created in the previous 2 lectures, and we employed Deploy Tool's option called Application Compiler to compile it into 2 standalones. First, an app file for the Mac, and second, an exe file for Windows. And at the same time that Deploy Tool was creating the app or the exe file for us, it automatically created that handy installer. It's called My App Installer, and users can employ that one file on their machines to install the MATLAB runtime system that we use to create the app file or the exe file. And we showed how doing that enabled the app to run on a machine that not only didn't have that version of MATLAB installed, but didn't have MATLAB installed at all. Our app then appeared right alongside commercial apps in the Mac's Launchpad and in Windows' Start menu. And finally, we learned that your app can be a commercial app too. You can sell it without paying a royalty to MATLAB, and your code is protected from thieves by high-level encryption. So in this lesson, we learned how to create an app with a graphical user interface and then transform it into a program that can be run on any computer. In other words, a standalone. So now you can write programs that you can give or even sell to non-programmers so that everyone can use it. Well, I should qualify that. The users need to know how to use a mouse on a computer. So we'll say everyone over 4 years old. And with Deploy Tool, MATLAB has really made it easy to create a standalone app. Amazingly easy.